company that most of you will know here, one of India's homegrown unicorns. Mahesh, a lion of the funding scene. And we're here to talk about fighting over net neutrality, the big story in the Indian tech scene over the last, well, for almost 6 months, I suppose. For the purposes of this, I have discovered that our two panelists are both vehemently against Facebook and free basics. And so for the purpose of your panel, I, as the Mumbai bureau chief for the Financial Times, am Mark Zuckerberg, and I will be putting the point of view of big Californian software companies to these recalcitrant Indians who don't seem to want it. So let me ask both of them to start. Why were you so against what Facebook were trying to do? And has the battle for net neutrality now been won, or is this merely a skirmish in a much larger war? And Mahesh, let me start with you.
All right, so it seems odd that to be called a venture capitalist and an activist. I mean, that's nice to have both brains out, both parts of the brain represented. Just for the purposes of disclosure, I am part of the Save the Internet group and have been part for a long time. So it's actually been more than 6 months. It's been about a year because we fought back the first one, and there was a return of the regulation. We fought that again. My simple point here was that what we Indians absolutely need is a cheaper internet, but it has to be the full internet and not just a free Facebook. And what we saw, my dear Californian software company, was this effort that kind of made it easy for us to characterize it as this colonial thing, as in you're blocking up a group of people and giving them only Facebook and keeping them away from real development in the internet. I don't like the fact you're
accusing the British guy of being colonial here.
I tell you, I rarely get this chance, James.
It always comes down to this, doesn't it? Come on. Maybe just in case there's one
Angrez hatao.
Maybe just in case there's one person in the audience who doesn't know, explain what free basics, what net neutrality is.
Okay, net neutrality, and let me come to the second part of it. Net neutrality is basically the principle that the entire net should be made equally accessible to all users, and you don't charge differently for different bits and bytes. The one subset of this case is the Facebook free basics issue, where Facebook and a group of sites were being given free of cost to the users, where they couldn't access the rest of the sites free of cost. But just to tell you, net neutrality is a much wider question than this. There's more to it than just zero rating, which is this case. There's also the issue of the fact that you can speed up some lanes and say, I'll give you, pay more and I'll speed up Facebook, WhatsApp, or speed up YouTube, or pay less and I'll turn down the speed of something, which is what Comcast has been doing elsewhere. That battle is yet to be won. The battle on zero rating, I think, has been won so far.
Right. And so did you win because your campaign was good, or did Facebook cock it up?
I don't know if actually either was true. James, I think the strange, weird thing here was the Save the Internet group was entirely using digital media, including Facebook, and Facebook was using print, television, and hoardings. It was truly bizarre. Like, I simply didn't get why they didn't have faith in their own medium.
Working for the Financial Times, I don't like the laughter when it comes to print media.
So that was one bizarre part. But I do think in retrospect, we did a few things right, they did a few things wrong, and probably we were able to get through to the powers that be in a more convincing manner that this was a strong and important policy decision to be made. And actually, the ruling that was passed, to my mind, having seen the FCC ruling passed in the US, it is the sharpest, most focused pro-net neutrality ruling in the free world, anywhere in the world today, actually.
Yeah, no, it clearly is. So, Mohit, one of the other, for those who didn't follow this debate, in addition to the kind of Robin Hood band of protesters who ganged up against the mighty Facebook, the other participants of this were the startup founders, where most of the famous startup founders in India, to some greater or lesser degree, came out against this. Facebook managed to alienate all of the kind of the unicorns, as it were. So why were you guys so against this, and how coordinated was your effort to stop it?
So I'll make 2 points. One, I'll talk about the hypocrisy in the whole process, and then I'll talk about a little bit of your colonial past as well.
Excellent, excellent. That's what we want.
So the first thing is, if you want to understand the problem of India, I think you need to come here. You cannot fly one day and you can figure out, I will go and solve the poverty. First thing I want to make very clear, poverty is a temporary financial state that can be eradicated by right solution. It's not a criminality, it's not a disease, it's not any kind of handicap where I can design a new type of internet for these people. These people are smart. They know what they need. If you really want to solve, if you really want to give internet to the peer people, do not redefine it for them. It exists out there and it works just fine. Solve their data problem. You know, just taking his example, I heard they spent $45 million printing on the English newspaper. I read English newspaper. These people don't even read English newspaper.
Except for the Financial Times.
Yeah, using that money.
You know, James, I'm really sorry to inform you, but not too many poor people in India read the Financial Times. I'm really sorry.
So they could have used $45 million and possibly created 3 million data point in our villages, and people should have been on the net and they would be browsing what they want to browse. So I think it's completely intent problem here. That's one thing. I also want to advise all the people, they really need to get out of that colonial mindset.
Here it comes, the colonial again.
So tell us what is the colonial mindset?
The Britisher came here, they spent 300 years, but they did not change our value. They did not change Indian. We are the same India. We are educated, we are resilient, and we are 1.3 billion strong. We produce more engineer and educated people than possibly the diploma holder in US, UK.
You can't win this one, James.
UK and any part of the world. Do not teach us what internet means. Do not teach us how you are going to solve poverty. We will solve it. If you really want to solve the problem, remain an Indian, be an Indian, give us tool, help us giving us the right tool, and we know what needs to be done. So,
but let's be serious here for a minute. You know, the use of this phrase colonialism was introduced not by an Indian, but by a sort of blundering American. But its adoption by the the pro-net neutrality campaign, it's quite dangerous, isn't it? I mean, in a sense, India does want foreign internet companies to come to India and to work with Indian companies. And the danger is that if you, launch campaigns against the best of them, and then you dub them as sort of neo-British evil colonialists, you'll put people off and they won't come. All the foreigners at this conference don't want to be seen as being colonialists simply for trying to do business in India, right?
Yeah, so, I don't think the foreign investment in India has gone down, and nor will it. I mean, we're the largest open market left in the world, and China doesn't really allow American companies out there. So you want to be part of this other, the second world, you've got to get India. I don't think that's really an issue. The point here is, nobody has an issue with what Google has done. Nobody has an issue with what Microsoft has done now, right? But there's only an issue with Facebook. So it was not an en masse blanket condemnation of the entire Western world. It was basically saying, dude, come here, that's fine. Come with your money, do what's good, open up the entire internet to all. But don't use government infrastructure, spend 300 crores or whatever advertising for the right to do charity, and then say, well, I'll allow you to use Facebook and a couple of dozen other sites, and that's about it.
So what was it about Facebook? So I'll adopt my black skinny T-shirt, my slightly muscular torso, my jeans, and my Mark Zuckerberg look in general. I mean, was it Zuckerberg himself?
Wife, yeah? Was
it Zuckerberg himself who kind of messed this up by being unbending, or what was it that they did wrong?
I think the basic thought that they could actually come in, carve out a large section of maybe 100, 200 million Indians, have them on this part of the internet that had no access to the real internet, right? Was something that was deeply distasteful to me, especially because it was done on the back of government infrastructure like government spectrum. And all we said was, you know what, you can do this on private spectrum, and that's really what the ruling said, but you can't do this on public government spectrum that runs, that has the internet. And that's perfectly cool.
What's your sense of why this went so badly wrong?
So just going back to your welcome point. So, our Indian values are Atithi Devo Bhava, which means we embrace anyone who comes to our country. So we are all for, people coming and working with us, and I think together we can do great things. I also believe, I've been following Mark. I think he's a nice guy, but he just took the bait and somebody misguided him on this whole issue, that what is the real problem and what needs to be done. I also want to, convey one more point. India is a very important country at a global level at this point of time, from any lens you want to apply. Facebook is Facebook because there are more than 100 million people who use their product, and they are their most active user. If you are anyone in social media or any business you are in, if you are not in India and China, you are most probably irrelevant at a global level. So I think everybody has to understand that component. I think the best way to solve some of these problems which are very inherent to our economy and our location is to work with the surroundings and the real challenges that we have. And do not try to project or do not try to envisage a reason, or just try to create a web of doing something with the intention of doing something.
So actually, John, I wanted to add, James, I wanted to add something to this. So maybe it was just Mark, but I kind of got a sense, because at one point I was debating this with his investor, Mark Andreessen, right? Who later on blocked me on Twitter. I think my sign is I've been blocked by Mark Andreessen.
Blocked you on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite a claim to fame. What, were you trolling him?
So this colonial thing came up, right? And, it was pointed out that it's kind of colonial to go in and try to take over a part of the people, and that's why he got blocked in India. And he came back saying, so what's wrong with being colonized? What's the big deal, dude, right? And at this point, I think you sat back and said, maybe it's a broader feeling out there that we're the masters of the universe. We're these big guys sitting out there. We know what's right for you, India. We're worth billions of dollars. You little brown man, just listen to us. Shut up. Do what we say. A little colonization is good for you. You'll thank me in the morning, right? And I think that entire attitude.
I like the idea of the morning after.
The morning after, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, colonial
you
white
had
god.
an extra long night on Facebook.
Maybe one of those nights for him.
Yeah. So I got
for those who may not have seen it, which I suspect will also be none of you, just explain what happened with Andreessen, and because in a sense that was the thing that really took, the battle had been won, and then somehow Andreessen walked onto the field and committed harakiri in order to kind of lose it even more spectacularly than they had already done. But explain what happened and what the consequence of that moment was.
So it was this discussion that one was having with Andreessen and a couple of other guys, and it just came to this entire point about,
were you actually the guy he was talking to?
No, I was one of the three guys talking to him.
Okay.
But this was in reply to another of the guys. So he came back, said, why are you so anti-colonial? Being colonial was always good for you, right? And so I actually went in, dug out statistics and said for all 350 years of colonial rule, our GDP per head grew at minus 0.5%. I produced a graph and said post-independence, it's now growing at 4% to 7% per head per annum. So here's a simple graphical point that might kind of make you think differently about being colonial or anti-colonial. Right. He reacted in the most intelligent way. He blocked me. Right?
He does tweet a lot. I mean, sure. And do you really think that this was... So Andreessen is a very... I don't know him. I follow him on Twitter. He's clearly kind of
Lucky
a smart...
We're not allowed to see because big white man, massa, colonial man, we can't see what he says.
But was this just a one-off? I mean, do you think that he was just being intellectually kind of sparring, or do you really think that in Silicon Valley there is this
It's really interesting because two other guys at A16Z, which is Andreessen Horowitz, so they also chimed in with this apparent belief that India was doing really well under colonial times and screwed up badly when independent, right? So it's like something which is divorced from fact, reality, any kind of number. Leave the emotion aside. It's kind of emotional harakiri to go and tell India, you're much better off when you were colonized. You're independent, you poor sods, right? And not just that, it was factually wrong. And so it seemed to be a broad belief in the Valley that we really screwed up by getting our independence from the British.
So you really think this is a broad belief?
I don't know. I mean, I've lived on the West Coast.
I don't think so. I worked there in US for 11 years. So I think I have worked with some phenomenal people. And coming from an American doesn't even make sense because everybody there is immigrant. So, and I do believe, even this has the worst consequences of being a colonial area. They massacred almost entire native population, and now they live in small areas that call reservations. So I think everybody tried to distance from, that kind of statement. I don't know. I have a huge respect for Mark Andreessen. What he has done and his legacy in the Silicon Valley. I was very shocked and personally very...
I have huge respect for Mark Andreessen. There was a profile in the New Yorker recently which revealed the crucial detail that he owns 3 microwaves. So when he and his wife has someone around for dinner, they can warm up their dinner so it's all hot at the same time. Yeah. So that shows real thought.
So why he said that it still beats me. And all the people who matter even in Valley and all they distanced themselves as soon as he.
So let's ask a broader question to close. So we think that the zero rating battle has been won, but still with their supposedly colonial attitude, these big foreign companies are going to come over here and maliciously and malevolently try to help Indians come online. They're going to spend money putting free Wi-Fi in train stations, you know, terrible thing to do. They're going to
No,
invest
no,
in
no,
Indian
no, 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 no.
infrastructure,
I think
and you guys are going to accuse them of
There's nothing wrong with
colonialism.
that.
That is perfectly the right
As
way of
long
doing
as
things.
you do whatever it is, even if you
Yes.
charge for it, let the entire legal internet be equally accessible.
Don't invent a new internet
Don't
for
sit back
poor
and say
people.
this is only for Google.
Just
But
solve
what
it.
happens if they come and put the Wi-Fi in the train station, dressed in a pith helmet and with a British accent, looking really colonial? I mean, you know,
I have no
it's
issues
fine.
with all of that. You know, just
No, the
offer the internet
serious point is, what is the advice that you would give to the larger foreign, both the American and we should say Chinese increasingly, the big global internet companies, when they come to India looking for this third great global market, the source of the next billion, the only big open market out there to be won? What's your advice for how they should behave themselves to avoid a repeat of this damaging episode? Let me ask Mohit first.
So one thing is, you know, they need to understand what the real problem is. You know, the challenges are real and some of them are very huge. And, you know, we would love some of these big companies to come and solve the problem. The last mile access, the data, the pricing, all these are some real problem. And if you really want to help, I think, you know, the whole initiative Digital India is going on, and possibly along with the government and even the companies and the people here will welcome them with open arms and really try to solve so that every poor or irrespective of their financial state, people can get on to access to internet. They can get any information they want, which can be done just by solving some very simple last mile problem rather than creating and reinventing a new internet. So my suggestion to is when you want to do something in India, think like an Indian, understand the real nuances and the real challenges and solve them. And everybody will help you.
So there's a larger factor. I mean, I really believe what will get a large part of India out of poverty is access to information, global information, i.e. the internet. But a very real issue is that a super large part of the internet is in English. We only have some 350 million people in India who can understand, read, or write in English. We don't have people who are trained in how to use a Devanagari keyboard or a Tamil keyboard or a Kannada keyboard. So we don't have text input in Indian languages. There's just not enough content in Indian languages. Translation doesn't work well enough. So one of the things, for example, I've been asking my friends at Google for a long time is, guys, can you help us build a voice-operated phone operating system? You know, I understand what I'm saying, and they tell me it's a really tough problem. I mean, English itself is tough, let alone do it in 18 Indian languages. So I think we need to not just offer a broader access to the internet, but also to understand for a lot of people, they have no means of accessing it because English is not their language of choice. Unlike China, where there's just one keyboard across all of China.
And so, short final question before we're just about to run out of time. But looking at me here in my tight T-shirt with my Chinese wife, my jeans, my nice shaved head, in my Mark Zuckerberg pose, what advice do you give Facebook now? This has been a very damaging episode for them, but they're a big player. As you said, India will become their largest market by users next year. How do they get out of this mess?
Mark, treat India like a first world country. We're not a third world country.
Yeah. Just treat us with respect, and I think we can together do better things.
We're happy to love you back, man.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
Can I hug you like Narendra Modi?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. I've been James Crabtree of the colonialist, English, evil, imperialist Financial Times. Both of my speakers have been good, upstanding Indians fighting against the evil American colonialists. So give them a round of applause and thank you for listening.
Thank you.